You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating talk radio. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Owie, owie, owie. So if you haven't guessed, I'm not feeling too well. On my own choice, and I wouldn't do it different, but I decided to complete my shingles vaccine series. And for those of you that have ever gotten your shingles vaccine, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You get the first shingles vaccine, you feel blah for a couple days. You get the second one, you feel horrible. And I feel horrible. Now, I know there's a lot of people who are not very, pro-vaccine going, Dahlia, why do you keep doing this to yourself? Why are you getting these vaccines? And then we have to hear you complain about them. Because I'm honest. I'm going to tell you if I'm going to vaccinate against something. I'm really honest about that. Maybe too honest. But the shingles vaccine for me, I thought was a good idea. I had chickenpox as a kid, and pretty bad chickenpox. And shingles is your chickenpox that decides to hide out in one of your dermatomes and then comes out in a period of stress, or COVID could wake it up. And then, or something else could reactivate it, and then you get a very painful blistering rash. If I only thought I would get shingles on my butt, I might rethink the vaccine. But my hunch is I'm going to get the shingles all across my eye and face. I don't want that. Or I'll get it wrapped around my chest where I can't breathe. So for me, I wanted to get the shingles vaccine. I also got the cap vaccine. I got the pneumonia vaccine as well, because after this last bout of COVID, I'm like, I don't want pneumonia. And the pneumonia vaccine now is just a one-shot deal where you don't have to get a rebooster, and it covers you for at least 21 different strains. So for me, I was like, that's a good deal. And most insurance covers it. But the shingles vaccine, owie, owie, owie. My arm is killing me. My underarm is swollen. I can't lift my arm. Horrible headache. Couldn't sleep. Felt feverish. Completely nauseated. Couldn't get comfortable. Hardly slept last night. Yeah, but it's worth it. It's worth it. I mean, for me. Now, somebody could say, well, isn't that scary? Not really, because it means my immune system got woken up. And shingles scares me, not the one that you get on the butt. But if I got it anywhere else, I've had patients where they had post-herpetic neuralgia, where that pain haunted them for life. And I'm the type of person, maybe it's because I'm a doctor, where when something goes wrong or there's a side effect, you're the one that's going to get it. I learned early on that when I got pregnant, you being a doctor, you're going to have the complications. It just happens. Because you're working all the time, you're not hydrating enough, you're around so much infectious disease, you're going to get the complications. And it's like, well, that sucks. And so always, whenever something goes wrong, it seems to go wrong with me. So for me, I'm like, if I'm getting shingles, it's probably not going to be the easy kind. And we also had studies, if you remember last year, that said those people that get the shingles vaccine have a lower case of dementia. Now, maybe it's because shingles, especially if it hits, the face and eye and brain, or you have a severe infection of shingles, that can be pretty devastating and, affect your brain health. But for me, I was like, I'm going to do it. But I feel like crap. So whenever you do get the shingles vaccine, you want to make sure you have at least 2 or 3 days off work. At least. You want to let your employer know you're getting a vaccine. Okay, don't panic about me having an infectious disease. I am going to be feeling like crap. But I got to tell you something. The one thing, though, that happens to me with these vaccines that I've been, very happy about is I don't get the illness if I get the vaccine. So they work on me. For some people, they may not work, but for the majority of us, they do. And so I chose to do that. I know there's a lot of people going, oh, yeah, man, I don't like vaccines. I don't trust the government. And that's your personal choice. I'm not telling you to go and do something. But for me, it really made a lot of sense. Because what I've seen with shingles and what I've seen it do to patients and what I think it could do to me, not good. And so if it means for a couple days I'm going to feel like crap, I'll go with that. Yeah. And I know people say, yeah, but shingles doesn't kill. Shingles, technically, I've never seen somebody die of shingles, but I have seen somebody go blind. I have seen somebody get secondary infections. I have seen people get very, very ill. I just don't want that. And another thing too that also steered my thinking, which I know is not going to be something you all want to hear, is I am now of the mindset that there is not going to be a hospital bed with my name on it. Where if God forbid I need to go to the hospital, we're full. All right, we do not have the infrastructure for the amount of population that we have. It used to be you went to the hospital, you get admitted, but that's not the case. I'm hearing people are stuck in the ER for days. I'm hearing hospitals are full, overwhelmed. And so my fear, especially with the pneumonia, so I got the pneumonia vaccine, is if God forbid it's my time, where I'm like, okay, now I need to go to the hospital. All right, this is my first time that I'm going to be told, no, sorry, we can't help you. And it's not that the ER would say that. It's that I would have to be diverted to some place where there's room. We don't have enough facilities anymore. And the medical systems are overwhelmed. We have just too many people and not enough structure, not enough infrastructure, and not enough staff. So I need to make sure I don't get sick. Am I going to get the flu vaccine this year? I don't know. I haven't decided yet because this is really messing me up right now. I don't think I could I did my left arm because I really need to use my right arm. And I know that I just can't even basically bend my left arm right now. The problem with that is you don't want left arm pain because then you're thinking, oh my God, am I having a heart attack? So with the COVID vaccine, I told you all really consider doing it on the right because you're going to think you're having heart issues for a month because, if you react like I did to the COVID vaccine on the left side. But I got to tell you, when I got that COVID booster, I didn't get COVID for a year or two. That was kind of nice because I just got COVID this summer and it sucked. As you know, the COVID strain is now circulating. Not a lot of hospitalizations, thank God, but people are down for weeks and it's not good. Don't get the shingles vaccine if you're sick. I felt like I was well enough and not having, COVID that I could, function and do well. But talk to your medical provider. For those of you over 50, we recommend it. For those of you 19 years old and above, if you're at high risk, we recommend you get the vaccine. Talk to your medical provider. Also, consider the pneumonia vaccine because the number one cause of death with flu is pneumonia. The number one infectious disease that affects older individuals is pneumonia. So you really need to, make sure that you're preventing that. And so I love that we have a vaccine for that. So, but it's my personal choice. All right. Don't give me crap if I wanted to do that. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
And we're back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877 Dr. Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. So a major legal battle is going on right now as it pertains to a surrogate mother whose baby or fetus had a cardiac issue that could be fatal. And the biological parents who asked her to surrogate the baby wanted her to abort the baby. The mom didn't want to abort the baby. So McKenna West is a nurse from Alaska. She carried the baby for the California couple, Nashin Gilkar and Omar Ahmed. There was a surrogacy agreement that included an abortion clause. At 20 weeks, so about 4.5 to 5 months old, the fetus was diagnosed with hypoplastic left heart syndrome. Now, hypoplastic left heart syndrome means the left side of the heart is not able to pump the blood to the degree that it needs to. There's less space. It's hypoplastic. Then more has to happen with the right side of the heart, where the right side of the heart has to do most of the work. The ductus arteriosus in the first few days of life could help a little bit, but after that, there could be a high fatality rate without medical intervention. With medical intervention, however, there's a lot that could be done. But the biological parents requested that Miss West terminate the baby. West refused, fled to Texas, and she gave birth on August 12th. Texas Attorney General temporarily intervened to mandate life-saving care. The biological parents secured a restraining order restricting West from contact. The infant successfully underwent a Norwood procedure on August 17th. So the biological parents are now suing the surrogate for over $100,000 for breach of contract and alleged damages. They named the child Rumi, but apparently in the media and Miss West, they referred to the baby as Gabriel. So the surrogate said as soon as the baby was born that the baby got ripped away from her. And, being a surrogate's not easy because, it's understood that you bond with the baby, but it's not your baby. When you're a surrogate, whoever is the biological parents, they get access to the baby. But she did not want to abort the child. And so she's an Alaska mother and a cardiac nurse. So she fought to have this baby live and get a chance. And it's a baby boy who they now name Gabriel. She got 60 seconds with him while the umbilical cord was still connected. And then, of course, the baby was taken away and then, later given to the intended parents, the biological parents. West had agreed last year to serve as a surrogate for Omar Ahmed and Nashin Gilkar of California, but they wanted her to terminate the pregnancy. Ahmed and Gilkar's attorney disputes key parts of her account and says they consented to the child's surgery as soon as doctors determined that he was eligible. So the Norwood procedure is the first of 3 open heart surgeries for newborns to commonly treat this. And apparently, many of these babies can survive into adulthood. So that is something that is, obviously will this baby live? About 60 to 70% of children who are able to get open heart surgeries or the heart transplant, 60 to 70% are able to make it at least through 5 years old. For individuals who survive these early childhood procedures and reach adolescence, 90% survive into adulthood. Some of these patients we're seeing are living well into their mid-30s and beyond. Of course, we haven't had the surgery and the data, so we don't have a lot of 80-year-old data, right, because we didn't have the procedure then. But for them to be able to, so that means there's potential. So the highest risk period is, obviously after neonatal surgery. Overall survival rates range anywhere from 60% to 75%. That's still good, but it's not 100%. Ages 5 to 18, around 70% of children that undergo the multi-stage reconstruction, including a Norwood and Glenn and Fontan procedures, or even a heart transplant, can reach school age. Once patients make it to early adulthood, they've gotten through a lot of the trouble time. So we have some amazing pediatric advancements. And now is the question, who gets to decide if the baby gets to live, the biological parents or the surrogate? Well, according to according to the biological parents, they had in there an abortion clause where if they want the surrogate mom to abort. But the baby was already second trimester. And so, that's harder to do. And this mom, who's a cardiac nurse, is like, you don't have to abort. Don't panic. Okay, we could be doing stuff. There's things we could do. And again, I can't think of what the biological parents are thinking. Are they thinking the expense? Are they thinking this child's not going to have, an option? Is this child going to struggle? Are they going to be burdened with medical bills? But the thing is the baby has a fighting chance to live. I'm on the side, give this baby a fighting chance to live. West is being represented with assistance from Alliance Defending Freedom. She is not trying to take somebody else's child. She said, I'm not fighting to try to take someone else's baby. I'm fighting because the baby boy needs somebody willing to advocate for and fight alongside him as he gets the ongoing treatment his fragile heart requires. So the concern the mom is having is, even though the child was able to get one procedure, are the parents who wanted this child aborted going to be on board with doing the follow-up procedures? And I see why there's the back and forth with this. The parents are probably thinking, I didn't want this. If the baby wasn't going to be healthy, now, and this is what they're thinking. It's not, I wouldn't have shared this thinking, but their thinking is like the expense, the round the clock care. We knew this would be an issue for us. But then don't be that child's parent. Give that child to somebody who wants them. Miss West is not trying to get custody. She just wants to make sure that the parents that wanted the kid aborted will still take care of the child. So McKenna is now fighting for custody because Gabriel needs somebody willing to defend him, according to her Live Action founder and president, Lila Rose, whose organization has supported Miss West. So Rose questioned Ahmed's and Gilkar's account of events. She said if they were willing for Gabriel to receive the surgery, why did a Texas court have to ensure that he received it under the force of law? The court intervened, and Gabriel has now received the surgery he desperately needed, praise the Lord. Rose also alleged that Ahmed and Gilkar, the parents, previously declined to consent to the baby's medical care and is now wanting to take him out of Texas. Their attorney has disputed West's characterization of the case, saying that they consented to surgery once the baby's medical team determined he was eligible for the procedure. So Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton had intervened, and two Texas medical centers had legal obligations to provide medically necessary care after the child was born. And, the future of this child is going to be up in question because the child is going to need a lot of care. And so if the parents don't want to be a part of that, they could then, give that child up for adoption or give the child to the surrogate. But if the parents do want the child, they're going to have to then take care of the child. And, it's interesting because I had the conversation with my doctor. My doctor said, I want to do the triple screen on you because in case you have Down syndrome, I go, you don't have to do the testing because I'm still going to want the baby. I'm not going to abort the baby. But she goes, but I need to know so I could prepare NICU if we do have any issues, still do the testing. I'm like, okay, no problem. But I will keep the baby just to let you know. But you have other parents who are worried. And they're having a child that they can't take care of is very demanding, and it's a shame because we have the ability to do amazing things, and some of these kids are able to fight. Well, and you always get that conversation, survival of the fittest. If nature didn't want that baby, why are we intervening? Well, I look at survival of the fittest and the Darwinian natural selection as we now have the ability to save those babies. So then why wouldn't we? It's not easy. So the surrogate mom at least was able to give birth to the baby. The baby was able to get care. And what really stinks is this child is going to grow up seeing this on the internet. How her original parents wanted her or him aborted. And that's not easy. It's not easy for a child to see that. And so, the parents are going to have a really good have to have a really good conversation with the child. Saying, look, at the time we didn't think you would make it. We thought the fatality rate was high, and we love you, and but they're going to see that this is, because this is a case, and I'm sure eventually we might even see the Supreme Court get involved. What happens if a surrogate doesn't want to abort the child and goes to an area where abortion is not as easy to get? What did the biological parents have in terms of choice? First trimester is a whole different scenario than second trimester. So we'll see what happened. But hopefully the baby does well. Godspeed. 1-877 Doc Dolly.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regenerations. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com.
Hot Shot Secret. Powered by science.
We are back on the Dr. Dolly Show. 1-877 Doc Dolly. 1-877 DOCDALI. So, to use marijuana or not use marijuana is still the question. I think we have enough data saying, look, if you don't have to use it, don't use it. But everybody and their mother seems to be on it. And yes, there's a lot of moms out there on it. I see it. And I voted to legalize it. I live in Southern Nevada. When we had that on a referendum or on our, when we had that on our, I think, it was a referendum that we had to approve. I did vote yes on that because I wanted us to be able to study it and see what medical applications there are. Make sure the police didn't have to be burdened with, those, to me, small crimes compared to all the other bad things that happen out there. In fact, I was just in Alaska at the Walmart a couple times, and there was a shooting at a Walmart that injured officers. I mean, these are the things I want our police to deal with, not somebody possessing a bag of weed. But the one thing I did not anticipate, and I should have anticipated, sadly, was that the cannabis would run rampantly through our high schools and even middle schools, and that kids would be exposed, having access to it, and using it even more than cigarettes and alcohol. That's a concern, especially since you see the dropout rate. I don't need to go and get a job. I could just play video games in my mom's basement. And I think it really damaged a lot of kids. But what about adults and cannabis use? So we have a new study where it's actually kind of defying what we thought cannabis can do in terms of our memory, in terms of our inhibitory control, our cognitive functioning. And new research published in the American Medical Association, and funded by the National Institute on Drug Abuse, said that the long-term impact of marijuana use on cognitive ability may be not as damaging as previously thought. Now, I beg to differ because I have seen individuals who have been, long-time users, and they just don't seem to have the functioning. In fact, that's what they came to see me for, because they were having memory issues. But was it the marijuana or was it something else that they were doing? I assumed it was the marijuana. Well, in this AMA study being reported by Newsweed, there's Newsfeed, this is called Newsweed. The AMA study was conducted among patients recently authorized to use cannabis for medical purposes. And according to the study, they found no substantial decline in cognitive function after 1 year of regular use. Now, it's not that they studied people who used it for 40 years. This is 1 year. How did they deduce this? Well, they looked at functional MRIs, or magnetic resonance imaging, to monitor the brain activity during cognitive tasks, measuring changes in areas such as the working memory, reward processing, inhibitory control. And these were Boston area participants. So they followed 57 Boston. I like Bostonians, all right? Okay. But after following 57 Boston area participants over a 12-month period, they found that there was no statistically significant difference in the brain activation between baseline scans and follow-up scans 1 year later. Okay, you know what? There's already a limitation in the study. You used Bostonians. Bostonians are pretty shrewd. They're pretty quick. Same thing with New Yorkers. I don't think you're going to be able to detect, because their baseline is so quick and astute. And I think we needed a different population base. So this study suggests that cannabis, if you're using it in mild to moderate amounts for pain, anxiety, depression, sleep disorders, had minimal effects on cognitive domains. So according to the researchers, they said working memory, reward, and inhibitory control tasks did not differ statistically between baseline and end line and were not associated with changes in cannabis use frequency. So what does that mean? Does it mean you could smoke? No. Okay, we've had, and use it? No, we've had many studies showing that recreational cannabis impairs cognitive function. But that's the difference. Recreational versus medical cannabis. So this study looked at medical cannabis as opposed to recreational. Medical cannabis, yes, you can use a bong, and it doesn't always have to be Marinol or pharmaceutical grade cannabis, but maybe it's because the medicinal dosing has a little bit more science to it. Maybe there's some more control to it, as opposed to, I want to go and get baked. So I think there is a difference between recreational use and medicinal use. Now, a study in 2022 found that prescribed medical cannabis may have minimal acute impact on cognitive function in patients with chronic diseases. So researchers hypothesized that the difference between the two forms of consumption could be dosing, or the frequency, or the intention behind consumption. So if they agree with what I just said, medical cannabis, there might be more of a choreography, a prescribed regimen, a doctor behind it. Whereas recreational, like I said, is let's go get baked sort of thing. So the authors are from Harvard and McGovern Institute of Brain Research at MIT and School of Engineering and all that. And so what I take from this is, and by the way, there's another study, looked at data from 63 million Medicare beneficiaries. Now, Medicare beneficiaries are usually older, but it could be some individuals with disability. They revealed that there was no statistically significant increase in psychosis diagnoses in states that legalize medical cannabis. Now, we know that marijuana could cause psychosis because we've seen it in the ER multiple times. But the difference with this is, again, medical cannabis. Not that it's a different, shall we say, brand or strain, but there's a different choreography to its use. So what does that mean? Do we have to take our recreational users and turn it into something medicinal? Do we have to dose them properly? Yeah, I got to take a look at what happened with Ozempic. Now you have all this microdosing. The art of microdosing is actually improving the success of people trying to lose weight, as opposed to those saying, you know what, I'm just going to wing it. I'm going to give myself the maximum dose so I could fit into a bikini by 4th of July. So maybe it means we do need to get the doctors involved. Could also mean that the brain is getting used to it. Now, I saw this with people using alcohol. I think they did have anxiety, depression, cognitive issues, but the functioning ability of those who drank on a regular basis shocked me. And I think it's because the body built up a tolerance until the body gave out. And I've known 2 people who ended up dying because of their alcohol use. The liver just shut down. So it could be that your body is temporarily going, you know what, this is, this is how I'm getting used to it. Another issue could be that some of the individuals that are using medicinal cannabis have so much anxiety, have so much pain, have so much depression that they're not functioning well. And that using the cannabis to modulate their anxiety or their pain or their depression brings them to a better functioning level. I got to tell you, when I'm in pain, I can't, if I have a migraine, I just don't give me anything to think or process about. I'm in pain. So maybe, for those individuals who are getting a benefit from it, that's the lesser of 2 evils. So this study is important. It's interesting. It doesn't mean, though, that you could just chronically use without there being. We've had plenty of studies linking, the marijuana to memory decline, psychotic states, anxiety, depression, etc. But we also know there's different strains. And there's an art to it. And we're really learning a lot about sativa, indica, hybrid strains, different brands, and so there's we have, what to me this means is we got a lot more work to do. 1-877-DOC.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit, and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out. Back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOCDALI. Medical mishaps are a big concern. We are being told that in some statistics, over 800,000 medical mistakes are being done, causing major patient harm a year. And that is very, very concerning because I work every day to make sure not one single mistake happens. And to think that there's hundreds of thousands being reported that are being done, you wonder how many are not being reported. We talked about that in vitro fertilization mishap where a couple got the wrong embryo. The child was 100% South Asian to the Caucasian couple, and they wanted to keep the baby, but the biological parents are like, but that was our embryo. So apparently they came up with a custody deal and all that. But yeah, the fertility clinic in Florida is closed since then. But you're thinking to yourself, what's going on here? Now here's another issue, or here's another case where Newsweek is reporting a woman got the wrong medical treatment and then has a catastrophic side effect. So TikTok user Katie Shepard explained that she underwent 58 electroconvulsive therapy treatments. She received she ended up then losing her memory. Now, electroconvulsive therapy has actually been very effective in treating drug-resistant depression and PTSD. She said, however, it made her worse. And she's now concerned whether if she was misdiagnosed. She says, I'm 29 years old and I don't have a single memory from before I was 26. She says she doesn't remember world events like 9/11, no memory of COVID. She said she went to a friend's wedding, but didn't remember anybody there. That's kind of frightening. Now, she said, I do want to say that I have friends that have done ECT and it's completely changed their lives and helped them. For me, it just became another traumatic experience and literally erased every memory from my entire life. What was her diagnosis? Well, she says in a follow-up video, her actual diagnosis was bipolar disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder. But she said that they chose this because they were trying to treat untreatable depression. Now, we have seen ECT work well in people with depression. Many people with bipolar also have depression. People with PTSD also can have depression. So I don't know if she was officially misdiagnosed, because depression could be a part of that. But she feels that the treatment hurt her, and it sounds like it did, especially if she doesn't have memories. In fact, a 2025 study found that many ECT patients do experience some level of long-term memory loss. Newsweek is reporting that they have found an increasing number of Americans under 40 reporting memory loss and struggling with focus. And a patient who has traumatic brain injury, shared their experience, feels they don't feel human anymore because they're forgetting things. And so some people are wondering, is ECT effective because it helps erase memories and helps erase some of the memories? That's not the plan of ECT. ECT is to kind of jumpstart some of the neurons and dopamine and things like that and help brain stimulation. But the erasing of post-traumatic memories might be a unintended consequence, which might help some. But unfortunately, if you had trauma, it'll still affect you. So when you have post-traumatic stress disorder, or if you were traumatized, it might not be a memory that triggers you. It's very interesting. I would never consider myself having the diagnosis of PTSD, even though I had a lot of traumatic things happen to me. But I was in the car, and there was a song that came on. And I can listen to any music. The blues, country, barbershop quartet, classical. I like all music. But I don't know what the song was. And it was a song from decades ago. And it bothered me. And I said, can we turn off the radio? Can we turn it off? And my husband looked at me like, because I've never asked him to do that. And he's like, does that song remind you of your past? I go, I don't have a memory of what that, but for some reason, I don't feel good with that song. And so even if you might not connect the memory, your body has another type of memory. So that is interesting. So these ideas like ketamine and things like that are amnesia causing may help some, but it might not necessarily help everybody. So people are telling her to sue, and again, if she was drug resistant and suicidal, and they found that ECT could offer an option, and she underwent 58. My guess is they might have moved forward because she felt like it was offering her some help, but then she ends up losing all her memory. I'd like to know a little bit more about how this happened. But the moral I want to make is, whether it's a medical mistake or it's a side effect, there needs to be a lot of education given to the patient. There has to be a lot of discussions. I am noticing that many people feel rushed into making a decision. I'm not saying this is what happened with her. But every time I had surgery, they would very clearly tell me I could die. They're about to roll me into the OR, and I may not be coming out, even though it was an elective surgery. And, and then you start to worry, and but they made that clear because my doctors were good. And to do informed consent, you really need to be thorough with that. And you need to explain, look, this is, these are the risks. And there's a lot of risks with any medication you take or any procedure that you do. This is why kids looking at transgender transitioning aren't really capable of giving informed consent, because how do they know what they want in terms of fertility or bone density later, or blood clot risk, or cancer risk, or heart changes in the heart structure? How do they understand that and grasp that? And so as a physician, you can't just use, all these fancy terms. You need to explain, what could go on and why. And some patients will say there's too many side effects. I don't want the medicine. I don't want to do it. Okay, that's fine. Absolutely fine. That's your decision. But if it's emergent and you have cancer, we do have to give you the benefits and the risks. These are the benefits. These are the risks. My recommendation to you all is be as educated as you can going in. Be careful of misinformation online, but research what it is that you are considering. Research your options. Look and see what other patients have said. I understand that there's a lot of, misinformation on these reviews, like Yelp and things like that. An ex-boyfriend or an ex-wife doesn't like you, they're going to be bad-mouthing you. But if somebody says, look, I had this procedure and this is what happened, and then you hear somebody else say, yes, this is what happened also, you could talk to the medical provider about what's going on. So like with Chantix, Chantix for smoking cessation has a risk of sometimes suicidality. Well, we're thinking one of the, one of the culprits in that, or something that might increase your risk of that, is if you're not using it exactly the way it's supposed to, where you quit smoking 7 days in and you don't go back to nicotine and you use that, as opposed to you mixing nicotine with it. And so let the doctor explain what's going on. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA1. That's 800-JBS-USA1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA1 today.